questions about the benefits of military careers and scholarship money that's available to students who want to pursue a commission after graduation. So again, we've got some exciting stuff. We're really looking forward to having you guys in the fall, and we're so excited that you guys could be with us. Also, please feel free to invite your parents and your families if they have questions or they'd like to tune in. They're more than welcome to join as well. Well, today we're going to hear a little bit about from our dean and then our respective department heads who oversee the curriculum and the things that you guys get to learn about within your engineering disciplines. Really exciting stuff that's happening in the field of engineering, and so I thought it'd be important if you hear directly from them. But before we get started, I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is Derek Harris. I'm the Director of essentially student programs here at the School of Engineering. And joining me today is our Dean of Engineering, Dean Welch, who would like to make a few remarks, and then we'll get started and introduce the rest of our leadership team that's here. Welcome, Dean.
All right. Well, welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As you spend a little time with us, getting to know us, and hopefully we'll get to know you by the questions that you ask about the Citadel School of Engineering and the faculty that you'll be learning with. First, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that we are the 21st ranked engineering school in the country. For those with programs below a master's degree and below, we are a hands-on program preparing our graduates to be industry ready when you graduate, which means we will design, and many of you will be building something to code. Our students compete against and win at regional student conferences against schools like Georgia Tech, NC State, Clemson, University of South Carolina, Florida, and many, many, many others. Our faculty are graduates from the University of Illinois, UT Austin, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Carnegie Mellon, Florida, and many others. But they're here specifically at the Citadel to teach first, and possibly do some research with you, do some projects with you, only while you're undergraduates. But let me not forget that we also have master's degrees that you might be able to continue on, but first we'll focus on freshmen. Our classrooms are active learning spaces where you cannot hide. And I want to tell you that right now. You'll be part of the learning. We'll be asking you questions and asking you to give us responses, and that information will go up on the boards. So with that short little introduction, welcome to the Citadel. We will move on to us answering some moderator questions before we answer your questions. So back to you, Derek.
Thanks, Dean. So let's talk about any of the questions that you have. If you guys, again, have questions for those who are just joining us, please use the group chat feature. Again, we want to make sure 100% of the questions that are asked here that you get answered. Again, if you have any questions that are of a sensitive nature or you're just uncomfortable, I'll provide you my information at the end of this, which you then can email me, and I will make sure to find that information for you or connect you to the right people. We will not be using this space to really talk about COVID and the unusual circumstances that the Citadel is operating in, but again, this is your space to get to know the people that will be leading your faculty in the classes that you'll be taking. So today joining us is Dr. Jeffrey Davis, who oversees our civil and construction engineering departments, Dr. Robert Barsanti, who oversees our electrical and computer engineering programs. We have Dr. Robert Rabb, who oversees our expansive mechanical engineering program. And then we also have Dr. David Greenberg, who's joining us, who oversees some of our project management courses and some of the other courses that you'll take as an undergrad. So if I could open it up, Dr. Davis, why don't you start us off with talking about why you originally wanted to be an engineer, and how did you figure that out?
Myself here. Yeah, when I was a kid, I always loved to build stuff, and then as I traveled with my family and driving around in a car, I was always fascinated when we went past construction projects, and I had the good fortune to have some high school jobs that got me into surveying and working on construction projects, and I just found all of that interesting. I like math and science, and then having the ability to use those skills to work on projects that were helpful to communities. Prior to coming to the Citadel, I worked on roadway design projects, transportation, traffic engineering, site development projects, a host of other engineering design projects, as well as construction oversight projects. And you know, like my genesis of interest really came from when I was a kid, and just liking to build stuff and enjoying math and science. And it's been great being at the Citadel and helping other students find that spark and find their career paths into very interesting and fulfilling careers.
And then Dr. Barsanti, you started in the Navy for quite a bit. How did you figure out that route and how you wanted to become an engineer? How did that play into your pathway?
Yeah, sure. Actually, when I was the age of the students right now, 1978, graduating from high school, and there were these new things out there. They were called computers, and nobody had one in their house yet. There was no such thing, but it was obvious to everybody that they were the future. And I said, I want to go build computers, learn about computers. Computer science didn't exist. They said, well, if you want to learn about computers, you got to be an electrical engineer. They're the ones that make computers. And so I said, sign me up.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school to be a computer engineer before there were computer engineers. I got to my junior year. I took my first course in computers. I loved it. Took my second course in computers. I hated it. I said, my God, I am in big trouble. Spent 2.5 years studying something I don't want to do. And luckily, I loved electromagnetics, which I was also taking, was required of all electrical engineers. And I said, I'm going to go design antennas. I'm going to go learn how to build communication systems. So I really enjoyed that. And then as I entered my senior year, I bumped into a recruiter in the hallway for the United States Navy. I remembered having the desire to join the Navy before I entered the college. And my dad talked me out of it. He said, no, you're going to college first. And so suddenly all these new feelings awoken in me. I said, hey, maybe I ought to go take a look at the Navy again. And so I did. I went on a tour of a submarine that weekend on a Saturday, and I was hooked. I said, yep, that's what I want to do. My mind was made up. Nobody was talking me out of it. 3 months later, I was in the Navy. So that's my story. I served 20 years in the Navy, and then I came, I was lucky enough to be able to get a PhD, and now I'm a college teacher. That's my story.
Well, we're glad your path led us to us. Your department's doing incredible things here on campus. Dr. Rad actually served at West Point with our dean here and got his degree in engineering at West Point. Dr. Rad, can you talk a little bit about your interests and how you figured out that you want to be an engineer?
Sure. I knew I always wanted to do something in math and sciences, and coming from a West Texas town, there wasn't much besides just some basic math and sciences. So I first started off as a different major. Then about my sophomore year, I started taking some engineering classes, and somebody told me, hey, you're pretty good at this. Why don't you convert on over here and become an engineering major? So what I was actually studying at the time, easily translation over to mechanical engineering. Haven't regretted a day of it. I knew I was going to go into the military. My father had served, and I was destined to do the same thing. So I turned around and picked the engineer branch. I spent a lot of time as a combat engineer doing a lot of demolitions and things like that, kind of out in the muddy boots part of the Army. But I knew that that grounding gave me a nice methodical way of problem solving and working through a bunch of technical issues. And, you know, later on in my career, I actually served in the Corps of Engineers, and I found that very beneficial. I was able to be the mechanical lead on a lot of things. But people were always turning to me just because of that technical background, even though, you know, maybe I wasn't working on airplanes or tanks in the military at the time. But it was that turning point, probably, like I say, end of sophomore year in college, that somebody turned around and took an interest in me, I guess, and said, you should really think about doing something else here. But I think the mechanical engineering background has opened up a whole lot of doors. I was really working on a lot of civil engineering projects, but I felt I was able to do that as a mechanical engineer. And some of the things I do as a mechanical engineer are very tied into the electrical world. I'm not an expert in either one of those, but I feel like I have enough knowledge base to be value added across multiple disciplines of engineering.
Great. Dr. Greenberg, you know, while a lot of the students aren't gonna complete an entire program of study in your area, I know a lot of them will end up taking courses in project management. Can you talk a little bit about yourself and how you were led to project management?
Sure, Derek. Well, so welcome everyone. I'm actually a Citadel graduate. I graduated from Citadel in 1981. And I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps as an infantry officer. Then when I retired from the Marine Corps, I came back to Charleston. My wife's from Charleston, and got a job in industry, and spent about 18 years with a Fortune 500 engineering services company, where we did a lot of projects. We installed communications equipment in armored vehicles for Department of Defense. We did dolphin training. We created the sonar buoys for the warning system. Did a lot of really cool stuff. And one of the things as engineers, you're going to certainly learn how to design and build systems. But the other skill set that you need is, you know, how do you run a project? How do you run a business so that you're actually meeting your customers' requirements, but you're also making a little bit of money while you're doing it? So project management is one of the courses we offer to junior and senior engineering majors. And it really gives you the business side of engineering on how do you be successful as engineers. And so once you get through your program of study a little bit and you get some of the more technical course out of the way, hopefully we'll see you in the project management program.
And then Dean, you and I work close together, and I know you have an affinity for bridges. Can you talk a little bit about your own background and what excites you about engineering?
Well, I always wanted to take things apart. I was always building a fort. I was always nailing things together that I wasn't supposed to. So my father spent a lot of time keeping me focused on projects with him. I don't know how many times I was burnt from welding or finger smashed or whatever, but constantly we were taking things apart, putting them back together. And that led me early to think about, what do I want to do? But one of the things that I also enjoyed was I got to take a couple of architecture classes in high school. And I really was excited about those. And bridges fascinated me. They were all different shapes and sizes, but they all had similar functions of providing transportation, travel across some gap, and meeting the needs of society. But again, when I was in high school, my father actually was working for an architect who pulled me aside and said, don't be an architect first, be an engineer. He'd taken a whole bunch of engineering courses through the School of Architecture, and those classes were watered down. And he had other architects that had taken them all on the engineering side and said, that's what you need to do first. And if architecture's still out there later, then go do that. And that was good advice because as it turned out, I went to West Point and they didn't have architecture. So I quickly figured out that I wanted to be an engineer. And because of the travels that my father, being in the military, had me doing, we were always looking at bridges, looking at the different types of bridges throughout the world. And that's what really drew me to first engineering mechanics, a subset of mechanical engineering, and then eventually into civil engineering and to finally be a structural engineer focused on bridges and bunkers and blast effects. So there's a lot of different things you get to do. And that was all because of my military career that led me to beyond bridges. But they fascinate me because they're everywhere. And again, they show us that the things that we create and design can be beautiful. We just need to make sure that we're tapping into that artistic, creative side of us as we're meeting the needs of society, but at the same time meeting that creative, beautiful side that all of us have inside of us as well. So that's what led me down that path.
Thanks for sharing that. You know, Dr. Greenberg, you had said that you graduated from the Citadel quite a while ago. What's one thing that exists now that you wish was there when you started out in engineering and project management?
Well, I think the technology, the computers, like Dr. Barsani mentioned, you know, the only computers at Citadel when I was a student are the ones you had to go over to Bond Hall and use a punch card to program.
Oh,
but
wow.
Certainly the technology that we introduce the students to, and I think the faculty are much better. They're more involved in ensuring that students are a success, that the students are actually learning and comprehending the material. And I think it's just a much stronger learning environment that I wish that we would have had when I was a cadet. It was more of, go to class, and if you don't get the material, it's on you. But now there's a lot of people here that really are behind you to make sure that you are a success. It just takes, a little bit of effort on your part.
Thanks for sharing that. Dr. Barsanti, you had talked about computers not being around or having to create the entire field. What's something that you see today that you really wish you had as a student coming through engineering?
Well, I do think the whole advent of technology has made it a lot easier to study engineering. We can visualize things now with simulations that we could never, do back then. We had diagrams and pictures and, blackboards, but it's just not quite the same as being able to see a simulation, especially in electrical engineering, where a lot of things, are invisible, right? So, to the human eye. So we can now simulate things using computers that we never could back then. I think that's the biggest part of it. As far as the material, the basics of the math and the science, that hasn't changed. But our ability to visualize what's going on, I think, has been huge. There was a time when all engineers worked in a lab, right? Everything had to be constructed in a lab. Now, I'd say maybe 10 or 15% is done in a lab and 85% is simulated. Because the simulation tools have become so good. We don't have to build something to know if it's going to work anymore. We can simulate it. I think that's the big thing.
Great. Thanks for that. And Dr. Davis, it's interesting that Dr. Barsanti talks a lot about simulations, but I know that your programs made quite a bit of news recently for field studies. Can you talk a little bit about the excitement behind going out in the field and how that adds value to the major?
Yeah, so we have a lot of emphasis on student enrichment. And that means like learning outside the classroom. I think that I'm a big believer, and our faculty is, that you can't learn everything you need to know to be an engineer just by sitting in the classroom. So we get students out, going to conferences, involved in research, undergraduate research, as well as funded research projects. And through all of these endeavors and activities, you can learn a great deal. We had a group of students that did research on the strength of and the soil properties of pluff mud. Pluff mud is the soils that are in the marshes around Charleston and the coastal areas of South Carolina, Georgia, and North Carolina, and unique to our area. And it turned out there wasn't very much analytical information available. And our students were able to take samples and conduct soil tests, and people in industry are very interested to see what the results are. We don't use pluff mud as a building material, but constantly construction is going on in the coastal area right adjacent to the mud or the marsh. And you have to move equipment out there. Understanding what type of load-bearing capacities it has is something that is very important from an engineering and construction standpoint. And our students have been very, very involved in that work. We also have transportation research that we're conducting with other universities, and there's a big push on driverless cars and the impact that that's going to have. It has a very interesting pathway to what it's going to become, how we're going to have infrastructure that communicates with cars, the cars that would communicate with each other. In South Carolina alone, there's 140,000 car crashes a year. And we've spent a lot of time analyzing the safety of how we can make the roads safer. But when the advent of technology into the vehicles, then that's just going to put us in a whole different stratosphere to have safe mobility and to protect people's families and to have a level of safety that would be unattainable without the technology being brought to bear. And our students, our faculty are involved in many different aspects of that type of research.
Great, thanks. Dr. Rav, I know your area just made local news as well for sign language and robotics that can help sign different things. Talk a little bit more about not only that project, but some other projects maybe that your seniors are working on that is just really cool that's out there.
Sure. As Derek just mentioned, we just made national news. A lot of the AP picked up the story, but we made a couple of robotic hands here that will assist with sign language. So if you want to learn sign language, you can do that, but we wanted to get it developed fast enough that we can actually do the letters and scale up this project so we can do arms and do whole words with this. So it's a multi-year project, but every year the students push this a little bit further. And this year the students had two teams working on this similar piece of it, one left hand, one right hand, but with some different end states on it. But their ability to go from where they were a year ago to right now is just unbelievable. Second project that just hit the news was a wall crawling robot. The students entered a contest with that last all year, but they just competed with it last week. So they won $10,000, split up 5 ways with the students. So they have a Bulldog Business Bowl sponsored here by our business school. But, you know, engineers took the lead on this project. And it's a pretty novel thing. There's been some concepts out there before, but we want to actually use it to help out with infrastructure inspections. So think about how dangerous inspecting a bridge would be. You can use this wall crawling robot to climb up the side of it, or a tall building. So there's different things that we can do with this, and that's the beauty of engineering, is that we do things with a good purpose to help benefit society. So here we're trying to make a job a whole lot easier, a whole lot safer. But the end users of this will probably be civil engineers and people who are trained in that type of inspection, but the mechanicals are the ones that are helping to build it. So we all work together a whole lot as a team. Another project that I just got briefed on yesterday, our students did very well on it. They developed some wind racers really for recreational use, but you've seen them out at the beaches, low-lying vehicles with a sail on it. But our students turned around and took the project home over spring break, finished it up, and we've got videos of them. They're even out there on YouTube. I don't like their music selection so much, but I like what the vehicles can do. So, I mean, those things are racing down the street, out in open parking lots. It's great, but because of what's going on, they couldn't test it out there on the sand and the grass so much. But they went from ground zero up to a very high level of proficiency, and their ability to present that project is just unbelievable. And, you know, to help with this a little bit here, I want to talk about Dr. Greenberg. He teaches a project management class, but the students' ability, I have to say that when they come up with this great project management plan, they can stick to it and make changes and adjust what they need to do and be able to present that. I mean, that's a true testament that our curricula right here across all 4 departments is very, very good, that they're using bits and pieces out of every single one of them. But that plan that they came up with right there kept them on track, even in spite of what's going on right now. But yeah, we got a lot of great projects like that. And we also took second place in that Bulldog Business Bowl, where we're trying to help out third world countries. They have bad water in those countries. So one of the things is, how do you clean those filters? So they developed a cartridge rewinder system for about $100, $150, no more than that, that you can sit there and take the filter elements out of it, scrub them, and then put them back in there, and they get probably 3 uses out of it. So it's been a very a banner year for mechanical engineering.
Wow, that's great. So we're getting some questions on our chat board real quick. Can you guys talk a little bit about some of the computer-aided programs that'll be used throughout your program? So I know, Dr. Rad, we've talked about one of the programs that's being used in your area.
Yeah, I thought that question came from Steve, and I looked him up. So he's become a mechanical engineer. So in mechanical engineering, Stephen, we use SolidWorks. So a lot of this CAD software operates the same. If you know one, it's easy to translate to the other. But we use a tutorial called Solid Professor. Will teach you everything to do. So when you get to the classroom, a lot of hands-on activities where the teacher will say, well, you should have learned this last night, how to draw this block and put holes in it. So we'll give you something different to work on. So it's a lot of hands-on in the class. the instructor will walk around and kind of make sure you're on track. And if you get through that exercise, he'll have something else for you. But we use SolidWorks, and we can do a lot of other analysis with it, thermal analysis, finite element analysis, a lot of great stuff. But we find that a lot of companies out there that are hiring our engineers like that SolidWorks proficiency. They can use it if they're not using it at their job, or if they're using something more expensive, like say CATIA, it's an easy bridge for our students to transition into that work that's expected of them out there in the workforce.
Great. And Dr. Barsanti, you said you guys rely a lot on simulations and modeling. Can you talk a little bit about the programs that are used within your program? You're on mute there, sir.
Caught me off guard. Well, you know, there are just a phenomenal number of simulation programs out there. I mean, you know, circuit simulation programs, obviously, we teach in our circuit analysis courses, include PSpice and some other ones that are coming out now as well. You know, MATLAB programming now has a toolbox probably for any engineering discipline there is, and any sub-discipline as well. They have a lot of visualizations software. They have a companion package called Simulink, which uses the MATLAB engine, computational engine, without having to write code. Basically, you just drag and drop blocks. Additionally, National Instrument, LabVIEW has been around for about 20 years, and they come out with new stuff all the time. A lot of our senior projects that need to build user interfaces use the LabVIEW environment to do that, because it's really easy to generate three-dimensional graphics and two-dimensional gauges and all sorts of visualization type of GUIs, as they're called, guided user interfaces. So it's very easy to put together an interface using that. We also use Google SketchUp, which is sort of a really sort of watered down version of AutoCAD, but it's free and it's out there, and you can do quite a bit of three-dimensional drawing using that.
What was that called again?
Google SketchUp. So it's a Google application. It's free. It's on the internet. Anybody can download it. You know, it doesn't do, engineer quality, professional engineering quality stuff, but you can make some pretty good sketches from that and learn a lot of the skills you would learn using a much more high-end package. So we actually do that with our freshmen. They design a number of things in Google SketchUp.
Awesome.
Those are some of the simulation tools we use.
Great. Turning our focus a little bit more about engineering broadly, Dean, I know that you're always in the field meeting with people. I know that you visited Volvo recently. I know that we've been involved with collaborations with Mercedes Benz, the Low Country engineering projects that are going around. Can you talk a little bit about something that that we can look forward to that's coming out of engineering soon, that students might not necessarily know about or have heard of?
Sure. First of all, it's a great time to be an engineer, really is. And it has been for a long time. One of the things that I was told as I was convinced to go into engineering is that you'll always have a job because there's not enough engineers to fill all the positions. And there's two reasons for that. The first is we're just not producing enough. But the second one is that engineers, as they mature, grow older, they take on other roles. You'll find some that have moved into the finance side of the house for the corporation, or CFOs, the chief financial officer. Some have moved into administration, and so they're doing on the HR side, or they're doing the marketing, the budgeting. They're hiring. They're out finding the projects for the company to do, and so they're always moving upward. However, today, even more because of all the technology that was just discussed, the skill of the engineer is even more at need. And quite honestly, we're all adding political science and social issues and cultural issues to our curriculum because we need our engineers to be involved socially as well. And one of the things I tell all engineers is that, yes, get into the engineering field. You'll always have a job, and it's still true today. But the other thing is get involved, get on a school board, get into a local nonprofit, put your skills to use. But more, and that skill I'm talking about is your problem-solving skills, your ability to look at a problem and to break it down into the pieces that need to be attacked. And that's the reason why engineers are pulled out of engineering sometimes and put in different areas. So when I look at what Mercedes and Volvo and Boeing, the reason why they snatch up our engineers so quickly is because not only are they coming into the workforce with what we say is the hands-on component, the ability to go right to work with the codes, but they also bring that leadership component. They've had to learn how to follow, lead, and they had to learn how to lead their peers as they become juniors and seniors. And that's probably just as hard as leading anybody else. And so I think that those are the things that we don't always think about, that when we go into engineering, it's hard. The math and science is moving quickly. It's elevating our skill sets, but we need those as our baseline. One of the questions is, are we taking any engineering courses as freshmen? And the answer is yes. There's a freshman course in each discipline, and then there's a computer applications course in each discipline. And what that does is allows us to start to wrestle with what engineering is all about, the design, the analysis parts of it, while at the same time we're taking a political science course or a history course and thinking about how all of that affects engineering in the past and engineering today. So if there's one thing that I would tell every engineer is never give up, always fight to the very end, stay in the program, because I'll guarantee you, if you graduate, especially from the Citadel with that leadership background, you will always have a job. And that job is going to be upper middle class, and that's a great life. So that's what I would say.
Great, thanks for that, Dean. This, I guess, would be for all of you. What's one thing you wish more students knew about a career in engineering? Dr. Davis, maybe if you'd want to start.
Yeah, I would say kind of two things. One, in civil engineering and construction engineering, like that, sometimes students think of that as kind of an old degree to go into, but there's so much in the way the advent of technology that's being brought to bear and all sorts of things, aspects of engineering. One would be like laser scanning. So we use laser scanning in all kind of ways to replicate the built environment as the basis of new designs. We have, like I was already talking about, the automated driverless vehicles and the communication of infrastructure to the vehicles. So the technology. Another thing I would say that maybe I would like students to know, and I just pop up here, this how much a built environment project can really transform a community. So this is the Cooper River Bridge behind me. It's a project that was finished in 2005. We had 10 graduates from our program work on this amazing project for our community. The engineering behind it produced a project that was earthquake-proof, hurricane-proof, ship crash-proof. It's an amazing bridge. It has a 12-foot wide bike and pedestrian lane over it. And when you get the built environment projects right, it's a highly visible project, very important for our community, for our state. It has like its amazing history of the bridges that were there previously, and just the amount of gratification that the students and the graduates who worked on this have in doing something meaningful that was not just making a living for themselves, which is great, but also using their skills in a way that really made our community and our state a better, more viable community for the success of our economy, for the enhancement of the quality of life. So those would be some of the things I would say.
Great, thanks. Same question, Dr. Rab.
Yeah, one thing I'd like for them to know is about how adaptable an engineering degree is. So I'll just take Boeing as an example. Boeing of course, is a big airplane manufacturer right here in town. And a lot of people will think, hey, they just hire aero engineers, but they'll be the first one to sit here out in public and say, we hire a lot of civil engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, industrial engineers. Oh yeah, and a few aeros. And it's not uncommon for, an architectural and engineering firm here in town that you would think is really civil focused to need mechanical engineers to design the HVAC. So I've been putting a lot of mechanical engineers in the past couple of years into firms like that. And you would think that the Naval Information Warfare Center here in town is very electrical focused. They hire a lot of our mechanical engineers. We've got the traditional manufacturing industries around here that hire them. But even in the military, if you're going to the military, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines, the engineering degree will pay huge dividends. Just like I talked about earlier, that great methodical problem-solving ability that you'll get from it, but it gives you, it opens up a few extra doors for you in the services right there that, say, another major wouldn't have. But I think that people have to realize that it's not a stovepipe anymore, that we bleed over into all the other disciplines and we're all working together. And you'll see that reflected right here in the faculty with what we do in each other's hallways, in each other's classrooms, each other's offices, working on the same research projects together. You're going to see that mirrored and mimicked right here with the faculty. You're going to see that out in industry and in the military as well.
I would also add to that one of the few things that I have seen over my almost 40-year career is that an engineering degree, Bachelor of Science in Engineering, opens the doors to every field there is. There's not a field that stops you. Your math and science skills set you up to be in the finance field, taking organic chemistry and anatomy, and you can be on your way to medical school. We have lots of engineers that'll go out and work for 2 or 3 years in industry and then go right straight to law school and become a lawyer focused on the construction or engineering discipline. And so I have yet to find a discipline or an area that an engineer could not go into. As a matter of fact, I even think politics is a huge one without even taking any political science courses. And the reason I say that is because the number one thing that our country today is dealing with, every governor is dealing with, and every mayor is dealing with, is infrastructure. And the fact that it needs to be repaired, it needs to be upgraded, it has to have technology brought into it. And to be able to understand technology and to work with numbers and to understand the 3D figures and drawings and how they work will set any engineer up to do almost anything there is out there to do. And so to me, if you're not 100% sure what you want to do, there is one thing that you can do, and that is graduate with an engineering degree, and it opens up every single area there is out there.
Dr. Greenberg, same question for you. What's one thing you wish more students knew about in terms of career in engineering and project management?
I think it's important to understand also that everything we do now is integrated. You're not going to, when you graduate with your degree, whatever it is, you're not going to go into an organization that they only do one thing. Your teams, that whatever services or products you're making for a customer or client, they're going to have a whole variety of different skill sets. And so one of the key aspects that we try to focus on at the Citadel is the leadership, the teamwork experience, and going through your design projects and your classroom exercises. You'll be members. You have the opportunity to be a member of a team, take on leadership positions, exercise leadership in the Corps Cadets, and really understand the importance of being able to work in a diverse team.
So Dr. Greenberg, thanks for that. And I think that that's a really good segue into, the Citadel is known for being a challenge with all the military environment, the responsibilities that come with being a cadet. And then on top of that, you're studying. So being a Citadel alumni and graduate yourself, why should somebody choose the Citadel in a structured military environment over, something that's a little bit easier, let's say like College of Charleston, or maybe not easier, but different? What would you say to those?
Well, I'm certainly partial to the Citadel because I'm an alumni and it's a great school. And you know, the you're going to get a great engineering education, as Dean Welch and the other department heads have talked about. But you're also going to get the opportunity to build lifelong friendships, because the training you're to go through is it's tough. You are going to be challenged, but there's a support apparatus to make sure that you get through it, but you have to really put forth the effort. The big thing about the Citadel experience is, you know, it's all about the teamwork and the leadership, because our leadership and teamwork is integrated into the entire curriculum. Everything you do at the Citadel, it's not just academics, it's not just athletics, it's the whole person concept that teaches you really how to be a well-rounded individual. And certainly if you want to go into the military, you'll be in good stead. But if you want to go out into a business and make your fortune, it's just a great experience, and you'll make lifetime friends that you'll depend on, and hopefully be engaged with for your entire life.
Great. Thanks for that. And I know Dr. Rabb and Dean Welch, you both went to the military academy, West Point Military Academy. Can you talk about your own perspectives as being cadets at that institution, following a similar format at the Citadel, and why you think that this format is better than, let's say, a traditional college campus?
Well, anytime you can be tested and rise to the occasion, you're always going to be better. I think that the fact that any of the military schools require you to spend 15 to 20 hours a week being a cadet, that's 15, 20 hours that maybe appeared in other schools as working part-time. So you already have a part-time job. The fact that there's not enough time during the week to get everything done, every assignment done, means you have to really get good at time management. You have to use your weekends to get caught up and ahead. You have to learn how to follow, as long as the orders you're given are not unethical, immoral, or unsafe. You start to learn how to lead others. And I think that whole process of teamwork and leadership and academics put together produces a product that every single company is seeking. They're looking for people who can manage their time, take care of their people first, while they're trying to take care of themselves as well, selfless service, and bring all that together to lead. And so our experiences, and I've always asked as well, what's the caliber of the student at the Citadel as compared to West Point? And the only difference I can tell you is that the best student at the Citadel is as good as the best student at West Point. You know, when you apply to go to West Point, you have to go through a congressman, and there's usually only one person from each congressman that they can select. Some years they can select two. And when you look at that list, the quality of the individuals on that list, and many of those students end up at the Citadel. And so from that perspective, I tell you, they're just as good. The one thing nice about the Citadel is you get to test drive the military. You go to West Point, you're already going to be going into the military, while at the Citadel, you can vie for a contract later, or even go into OCS after you graduate. And so I find that what it does for you, as it puts you through the heat and hardens the steel, and you learn how to overcome adversity, it makes you the person that every company is looking for. And then add engineering on top of that, which is the toughest programs on campus. And that's what makes us as engineers, and especially Citadel engineers, highly sought after. Rob?
I'd like to just quickly jump in there, because you had mentioned that engineering is one of the harder majors on campus. And we've had a few questions about the systems that are in place for you. I can tell you that we're collectively, from my position, our two student affairs coordinators that are embedded in each of your majors, along with the faculty that you have contact on a daily basis, as well as the people embedded within the Corps cadets and the military side. We are all looking at all of our students, and we get to know you very well. So if you're struggling, we're going to pull you aside, and we're going to connect you with all the resources that are on campus. And so just from a 30,000-foot level, you know, we have large study halls where you come in, and we've got people floating around where you can work on your homework, and we're answering that. We've got smaller focus session groups where it's called SI, supplemental instruction. So it's not a giant study hall, it's a much smaller group. We have people, again, working one-on-one, And then for those that really need it, we've got one-on-one tutoring, and it's heavy in engineering, math, chemistry, and biology, so in the sciences and math area. And we're really good at helping students who want to be here, who want to be successful. We're really good at getting them to graduation day. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. Dr. Rabb, would you like to add anything about your experience at West Point, how that you prepared?
Yeah, so why should you come to the Citadel? This, from my perspective, it's we've got a very similar structure here. So it's that structure that gives us the ability to, get you out of the program here in 4 years. So we have daily or weekly requirements in all of our courses. So those are little checkpoints, all right? So that's feedback to you, it's feedback to us as instructors. But by doing that, it's much easier to eat an elephant one bite at a time rather than just eat the whole elephant. So as we do those little checks on you, it may seem like, yeah, that's a lot of little work, but we're actually scaffolding you and building you up to where you need to be to take that next course, and eventually you're going to get to graduations and you're ready to go out the door. So that structure that we give you and we model in our classes, we sit there and lay out the whole semester. Can we change it? Sure, based off of other events and unannounced visitors here on campus. But when you walk into our classes day one, you know when the exams are, you know when the homeworks are, you know when that final exam is. So we built that structure in here so there's no surprises. Just as Dr. Greenberg mentioned earlier, that we, work together, we live together just like you would as a cadet. We don't actually live together, but, we're here spending a lot of hours with you. It's not uncommon on our course feedback for the instructors to sit there and get feedback on there. It's like, hey, you're very giving of your time and you're available for us, beyond what we've seen in other places around here. So our faculty, I think, are very caring and very engaged with your student development, not just your academic development, but also over in the barracks life, other activities outside here. So you're not just going to see us in the classrooms, you're going to see us all over campus doing lots of things with you. And, Dean Welch just touched on this a little bit about, getting through the program here. All of you have been accepted to the Citadel. As I tell all the students in mechanical engineering, you have the academic horsepower to get through all the programs that we have here. You've met that mark. I'm sitting here looking at the admissions report on the side screen here, so I know what majors you've selected, at least initially. All of you have that academic horsepower, okay? We're here as faculty to provide you that structure to get you out of the door in 4 years. We're sitting here providing you those little checks. You call them homeworks, we call them, it could be projects, it could be exams, but we're providing you those little checks to make sure that happens. All right, what all of you have already delivered through previous tests, your SATs, your high school accomplishments, things like that, we know that you can get through. So we're here kind of as an aid to help you get to that through the next 4 years.
Great.
And,
Thanks
and
for
Perry,
that.
Perry, you asked the question about, do I have to take placement tests for Calc 1 and Calc 2 if I've already taken them and have a dual enrollment class? And the answer is yes. The reason is that we want to make sure you understand what your skill set is and whether you need to dig down deep because you've got what you're supposed to get, or is there some missing pieces that we have to fill in. And so that is why, as Dr. Rabb said, there's all these checks and balances that we're checking on you to prepare you so that when you graduate, you can take the fundamentals exam, which is the first step to becoming a professional engineer. And it's all of those little assignments and repetitive work and checking to see that you actually have the skill set that will make a difference on your success long-term in your career.
Great. Dr. Rabb, you talked about the roles of faculty here. And I know all of you teach or have taught classes. Dr. Davis, I didn't want to leave you out of our last question, but we've got some military folks here. Can you talk a little bit about what you find most rewarding in your role as an educator at the Citadel is in your work with students and cadets? I'm going to unmute you here. There you go.
Yeah, so it just would be to help students find their path and believe in them, maybe when there's some doubts, and it's not just me as the department head, it's the faculty and the advisors that we have. And we've had many instances where students were kind of, but we just wouldn't let them fail, and we just worked with them and helped them figure out a way to get through the sticking points that they had, and to move forward in the curriculum, and find meaningful opportunities to learn. And I've been here 20 something years, and just believing in those students, and as they meet with success and go into their careers, and then the amazing success that they have in their careers. I have students all over the place. Just anytime I find out what they have been up to, students that I knew that they were at some crossroads, maybe when they were here as students at times, and just believing in them and knowing the potential that they had, and developing a work ethic that would lead to success, and then seeing what they've done in their careers. And that's been the most rewarding part. And then especially when it wasn't an easy path through the program. So students in that regard, like the students are so thankful that they were here in a supportive environment, and the force of will of our faculty just to kind of help and support students and believe in them when the going is tough sometimes. And that makes a big difference. And seeing where that leads to, lots of students have gone out of the program, graduated, and just gone into amazing careers that make a big difference for them personally, and for the types of projects that they work in their companies, and for government all over the country.
And Dr. Barsanti, I'm gonna brag on you for a little bit. You know, I walk around the halls and I see some instructors have some students kind of sleeping and dozing off. Every time I pass by your class, everybody's laser focused on you. Can you talk a little bit about what's so rewarding being an instructor or faculty member at the Citadel and helping cadets become successful?
Yeah, I'm not sure why they're not sleeping in my class. I'm a clown, but they don't want to miss the next joke. But yeah, I think every one of us who becomes a college professor wouldn't be around very long if they didn't enjoy being around students. And so, for me, that's the rewarding part, is to interact with the students on a daily basis, to take some very complicated, or what appears to be complicated problem or process, and break it down into small pieces that they can digest, and help them work their way through these difficult problems. I think that's something I enjoy very much. So I don't think any one of us would be here if we didn't enjoy, relaying information to the next generation of engineers.
And then Dr. Greenberg, I know that I've helped you get set up for class a couple of times there. So I know that you're actively teaching each semester. What do you still find rewarding about educating our cadets?
I like the opportunity to meet everyone and work with them. And I say work with them because that's really what we're doing. It's not just come into class and listen to a professor pontificate for 45, 50 minutes or an hour. It's being involved and getting the students involved in the class, working on projects, help them find the solutions to problem sets. I think I just enjoy working with the students, especially when they're engaged and they're interested in what we're trying to do. And oftentimes, I learn as much from the students as they do from me, and really have amazed at the quality of the projects some of the students come up with. Like Dr. Rab mentioned, the wall climbing robot, the automatic filter rewind system, the Baja car project. They're just really amazing projects that students get to work on. It's fun being involved working with the students.
Well, thank you so much. So we're coming up on about 5 more minutes left. Is there any questions out there that we didn't get to? I know that we've asked a little bit about our computer requirements, and those are out there on our information technologies website. We're pretty much in line with that. Any of the computers that they're recommending should be able to run our programs here.
We also posted those to each of our web pages as far as what the computer requirements are. And one of the things that you all need to understand with this pandemic, if you have a laptop that also has a camera and can do the Zoom sessions that you're doing right now, that's important. because each fall we have the possibility, because of being in Charleston, that we could have a hurricane or a hurricane that makes us evacuate. And we may not get hit, but we still have to evacuate in the future. Starting this fall, we'll take 2 days to get everybody where they're supposed to go. And then we'll move to online education for a week or whatever it takes to get us back to campus. So it's important to have a PC. Some Macs, if it's a new Mac, can actually emulate a PC, because a lot of our programs work well on PCs, but you have to emulate a PC on a Mac. If you're thinking about buying a tablet and that's going to be it, well, that might work for going to the classroom, but it won't work for running the programs that we need or being able to have those programs with you if we have to depart campus, or are you traveling with a sports team or with the ROTC or with one of the clubs. You're going to want to be able to stay connected and have that software running. So just look at each of the web pages for that, and they'll be able to help you with that. The only real placement exam that we have is the mathematics one. And that one, you just go to the math department website, and it shows you all you need to know about how to take that placement exam. And the purpose of that is to have a conversation with you as to where you should start in math at the college level, to make sure that we don't have you jump into a course that would have you have a very bad experience and are not prepared for. And some of you talked about the need for support, and Mr. Harris already mentioned that. There's tons and tons of support, but the biggest support is your classmates. The second one is your instructor, and the third is there's going to be tutors inside the company, as well as this thing called supplemental instruction and the Student Success Center. So lots and lots of support out there.
Okay. Like I said, at the end of this, I promised you all my contact information. I'm going to go ahead and I'll go ahead and type that up on my PowerPoint presentation that was displayed a little bit earlier. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. The next series of info sessions, well, the next info session is going to be according to your major, and then you will join the department heads that you're seeing with us today. You'll get to hear from faculty and maybe some students if we can get them to commit to joining us over the summer. And so you'll get to hear specific information about your major, be able to ask more detailed questions about what it's going to be like to be, let's say a civil or construction engineer major. We can talk to Dr. Rab about some of the senior projects that you guys may have seen out on our news space for mechanical engineers. So really, that'll be an opportunity to get to hear from the faculty that you'll be learning from. And I can tell you, the faculty that work for us are pretty cool. I'm not an engineer, but one of them actually has a wing of a private jet as his desk. I mean, again, some of the things that our faculty members are doing is pretty cool. So again, if you guys want to stick around, I will update my PowerPoint slide to have my email address. So if there's anything that you didn't get to ask or were uncomfortable asking that you'd like to ask me personally, again, I'm going to show you my email address. And then also, don't hesitate to contact me if you're laying in bed tonight and you think of a question that you wish you had asked. Feel free to email me at any point over the summer. Again, the whole goal of this is to make sure that you guys have all the answers that you need while you're getting ready to start for the fall. So to Dean Welch and all of our department heads, thank you for your time today. Thanks for joining us. And then to the class of 2024, thank you again for joining us, taking the time out of your schedule to hear a little bit about your future home here at the School of Engineering. Thanks, everyone.